Do you remember where you were when the motherships cast their shadows over Los Angeles 5th was the ultimate 80s nightmare, a story of fascism wrapped in sci-fi where friendly neighbors hid reptilian secrets? We gathered around our TVs, terrified yet captivated by the resistance fighting to save humanity. But today, the real battle is against time. The red dust has settled, revealing a heartbreaking reality. Many of our brave freedom fighters and iconic villains have faded into the stars. Tonight we peel back the human mask to honor the fragile souls beneath the scales. Robert Englund as Willie. Long before he became an icon of horror, Robert Englund was a classically trained performer seeking his place in the sun. Born on June 6, 1947, he spent his formative years honing his craft, not in the makeup chair, but on the prestigious stages of the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, absorbing the discipline of Shakespeare and the nuance of the theater. By the time the casting call for V went out, he was an experienced character actor, standing at 37 years old and looking for a role that would challenge the industry's perception of him. He was not looking to be a villain. He was looking for a soul to inhabit. In a series dominated by deception and the terrifying consumption of live rodents, Englund's portrayal of Willie was a sanctuary of kindness. He played the visitor who was anything but a gentle, bewildered alien who preferred the company of humans to the militaristic dogma of his own leaders. Viewers fell in love with his stuttering attempts to speak English and his innocent, wide-eyed confusion at the violence surrounding him. He served as the show's moral compass, a reminder that in war the enemy is not a monolithic force, but a collection of individuals. His performance was quiet, understated, and profoundly empathetic, making the audience fiercely protective of him. We didn't just watch Willie, we wanted to save him. However, the life of the character actor is rarely a straight line, and Englund's career took a sharp, ironic turn immediately following his tenure as the gentle alien. While he was beloved as the soft-spoken Willie, the industry saw a darkness in him, waiting to be unleashed. The transition was jarring. He went from playing the most innocent character on television to the most terrifying figure in cinema history, Freddy Krueger. Behind the scenes, Englund navigated this massive shift in public perception while maintaining a grounded personal life. He found his anchor in 1988 when he married Nancy Booth, a union that provided stability amidst the whirlwind of horror conventions and typecasting. He carried the weight of being a horror icon with grace, even as the heavy prosthetics of Krueger threatened to eclipse the classically trained thespian beneath. Life after the mothership departed was a whirlwind of nightmares and dreamscapes. Englund embraced his destiny as a genre legend, yet he never lost that twinkle of mischief and kindness that defined Willie. He continued to work tirelessly, appearing in over 100 productions, refusing to slow down even as the industry changed around him. In recent years, he has enjoyed a renaissance, appearing in high-profile projects like the Netflix thriller Choose or Die in 2022, proving that his presence on screen remains as magnetic as ever. He traveled the world, meeting generations of fans who revered him not just for the scars of Freddy, but for the soul of Willie. Today, Robert Englund stands as a titan of American pop culture. At 79 years old, he is a testament to the longevity that comes from genuine talent and adaptability. He proved that an actor could be both the monster under the bed and the best friend you ever had. His legacy is not just in the screams he elicited in theaters, but in the quiet, enduring affection earned by a reptilian alien who simply wanted to be human. Michael Ironside as Ham Tyler. Michael Ironside was cut from a different cloth, a rugged texture forged in the cold winters of Canada. Born in the winter of 1950, he carried an intensity in his eyes that suggested he had seen the harder side of life long before he stepped onto a soundstage. He was 34 years old when he donned the vest of the mercenary Ham Tyler, arriving with a reputation for playing heavies and villains. He came to the production ready to inject a dose of lethal reality into a sci-fi fantasy. When Ham Tyler walked onto the screen, the entire tone of V shifted. He was the antidote to the idealism of the main heroes. He was the man who knew that freedom wasn't free, it was bought with blood and dirty work. Ironside played Tyler with a delicious predatory charm, chewing on his dialogue as if it were gristle. He was the character we didn't want to like, but had to respect the one who would shoot first and not bother asking questions later. His chemistry with the cast was electric, because he represented the hard truth: to defeat a monster, you have to become a little monstrous yourself. He was the cool, dangerous uncle of the resistance. Yet the invulnerability he projected on screen masked a mortal struggle behind the scenes. In his real life, Ironside faced enemies far more insidious than lizard people. He waged quiet, brutal wars against his own body, surviving cancer not once but 3 times, battling through bowel, prostate, and thyroid cancer. This was the hidden truth of the invincible Ham Tyler. While he was projecting strength to millions, he was fighting for his life in hospital rooms. Through it all, he found solace and strength in his family, marrying Karen Dinwiddie in 1986, a partnership that became his bedrock. Ironside emerged from his health battles scarred but unbroken, his voice growing gravelier and his presence even more commanding. He never stopped working, transitioning seamlessly into the role of the elder statesman of tough guys. He became a legend in the gaming world as the voice of Sam Fisher, and a staple in both indie hits and blockbusters. Recently, audiences saw him in the acclaimed biopic Blackberry and the action thriller Nobody, proving that he could still command a scene with nothing more than a glare. Now, at 76 years old, Michael Ironside is revered as a survivor in every sense of the word. He remains alive, active, and undeniably potent in Hollywood. His legacy is etched in the lines of his face and the depth of his voice, a reminder that while heroes get the applause, it is the anti-heroes like Ham Tyler who get the job done. Jane Badler as Diana. Before she was the supreme commander of the Visitors, Jane Badler was a beauty queen with a hidden well of sorrow. Born on New Year's Eve in 1953, she seemed destined for the spotlight, winning the title of Miss New Hampshire and competing for Miss America. But behind the sash and the smile lay a devastating tragedy. At the tender age of 18, she lost her father and brother in a horrific plane crash. This profound loss forged a steel core within her, a resilience that she would later channel into her career. She was 31 years old when she took the role of Diana, bringing with her a complexity that transformed a comic book villain into a Shakespearean antagonist. Jane Badler defined the era of the mega bitch alongside Joan Collins and Linda Evans, but with a sci-fi twist. As Diana, she was mesmerizingly evil, combining brilliant intellect with ruthless ambition. The image of her unhinging her jaw to swallow a guinea pig whole became one of the defining moments of 1980s television, a shock that rippled through living rooms across America. Yet it was her icy stare and her manipulative prowess that truly terrified us. She made us hate her, yet we couldn't take our eyes off her. She was the villain who believed she was the hero of her own story, executed with a terrifying regal grace. After the wars of V ended, Badler's life took her to the other side of the world. She fell in love with Australian businessman Stephen Haynes and relocated to Australia, trading the Hollywood Hills for the beaches of Melbourne. While she built a happy life with her husband and 2 sons, Sam and Harry, the specter of tragedy visited her again years later with the heartbreaking loss of her son Harry. It was a pain that echoed the losses of her youth, a reminder that the strongest hearts are often the ones most tested. Jane Badler refused to fade into obscurity. She embraced her cult status, becoming a beloved figure in the sci-fi community and a celebrated cabaret singer in Australia. She even returned to the franchise that made her famous, appearing in the 2009 reboot of V, as Diana, passing the torch to a new generation while proving she was still the queen. In 2022, she returned to the screen in the horror film Surrogate, showing that her capacity to unsettle and captivate remained undimmed. Today, at 73 years old, Jane Badler is a symbol of endurance and reinvention. She is a mother, a survivor, and an icon who taught a generation that evil could wear a beautiful face. Her legacy is one of fierce talent and the courage to keep performing no matter how heavy the heart may be. Marc Singer as Mike Donovan. Marc Singer was born into a symphony of art. Born in early 1948, he was the son of a conductor and a concert pianist raised in a world where performance was the family language. Yet unlike his musical parents, Singer found his rhythm in the physical, kinetic world of acting. He was 36 years old when he was cast as Mike Donovan, bringing with him a leading man charisma that felt both classic and contemporary. As Mike Donovan, Singer was the audience's avatar. We discovered the horrifying truth about the visitors through his lens. He embodied the rugged individualism of the 80s hero, the journalist who wouldn't be silenced, the father fighting for his child, the warrior in a denim shirt. Singer played Donovan with a desperate, sweaty urgency that made the stakes feel real. He wasn't a superhero. He was a man out of his depth who refused to drown. His chemistry with the camera was undeniable, anchoring the fantastical elements of the show in a gritty blue-collar reality. He made us believe that one man with a camera could bring down an empire. The physicality that defined his roles, from V to the loincloth-clad hero of the Beastmaster, demanded a grueling dedication that few saw. The hidden truth of Singer's life was the pressure to maintain that peak physical form while navigating a typecast industry. While the world saw the action star Singer was a man deeply devoted to his craft and his family married to Haunani Min, he navigated the changing tides of Hollywood, where action heroes were often treated as disposable commodities. As the decades passed, Singer transitioned from the leading man to the seasoned veteran. He never retired. He simply kept marching. He became a staple of the convention circuit, greeting fans with the same warmth and energy he projected on screen. His career remained steady, with roles in westerns and independent films, including recent appearances in Team of Two and Agent Recon in 2024. He didn't chase the limelight of the A-list. He chased the work, maintaining a dignity and professionalism that earned him the respect of peers and fans alike. At 78 years old, Marc Singer remains the enduring face of the resistance. He is alive and well, a testament to clean living and professional dedication. He represents a golden era of television heroism, a reminder of the time when we looked to the skies not with fear, but with the hope that someone like Mike Donovan was watching out for us. June Chadwick as Lydia. June Chadwick brought the distinct British elegance to the chaotic American production of V. Born in 1951 in the rolling hills of Warwickshire, England, she was not originally destined for the screen, but for the concert hall. She trained for 4 years at the Royal Academy of Music, a singer with a voice disciplined by classical rigor. It was this poise, this perfect posture and control that she brought to Hollywood. She was 33 years old when she stepped into the red uniform of Lydia, looking for a role that would utilize her sharp wit and commanding presence. Lydia was the knife in Diana's back, the internal threat that made the villain's storyline so compelling. Chadwick played her with a passive-aggressive brilliance, a character who smiled while plotting your execution. She was the perfect foil to Badler's overt aggression. Lydia was subtle, bureaucratic, and maddeningly calm. Viewers loved the power struggle, the dynasty and space dynamic that Chadwick fostered. She wasn't just a henchman. She was a player in the Game of Thrones, bringing a delicious layer of camp and tension to the mothership's bridge. Away from the set, Chadwick was a woman of diverse talents and surprising pivots. After her time fighting reptilian politics, she found herself in the comedic genius of This Is Spinal Tap as Jeanine Pettibone, proving her range. But her hidden truth lay in her departure from the limelight. She eventually stepped away from the glare of Hollywood to live and work in Africa, a radical change of pace that spoke to an adventurous spirit. She later settled into a life of healing and education, becoming a certified teacher of the Alexander technique. She married surgeon Toby Gerald Mayer, finding a stability that the chaotic world of acting rarely provides. For years, Chadwick lived a quiet life in Los Angeles, focusing on charity and family, seemingly retired from the screen. However, the pull of legacy is strong. She returned to the public eye to reclaim her comedic roots, slated to reprise her role in the highly anticipated Spinal Tap 2. She transformed from a sci-fi icon into a respected instructor and philanthropist, proving that there is a rich, fulfilling life to be had after the credits roll. She aged with a grace that mirrored the elegance of her youth. Now 74 years old, June Chadwick stands as a woman of multifaceted success. She is alive, active, and respected. Her legacy is one of intelligence and versatility, the classically trained musician who conquered space and satire with equal aplomb. Faye Grant as Dr. Julie Parrish. Faye Grant was the embodiment of the girl next door who rises to the occasion. Born on July 1957 in Michigan, she carried a Midwestern sincerity that grounded her performances. She was young, just 27 years old, when she was cast as Dr. Julie Parrish. She wasn't an action hero by trade. She was cast to play a scientist, a woman of reason forced into a world of violence. Grant brought a vulnerability to the role that made her transformation into a leader all the more powerful. She represented the ordinary citizen pushed to extraordinary lengths. Dr. Julie Parrish was the soul of the resistance. While Donovan was the brawn, Julie was the brains and the conscience. Grant played her with a fierce determination, balancing the trauma of the invasion with the responsibility of command. We watched her struggle, we watched her break, and we watched her rebuild herself into a warrior. She was an inspiration to young women watching a leader who didn't sacrifice her femininity or her humanity to command respect. Her performance was the emotional anchor that kept the high-concept sci-fi grounded in human stakes. But for Faye Grant, the drama on screen would eventually be eclipsed by a devastating reality. In 1985, she married actor Stephen Collins, a union that seemed picture-perfect to the public. For decades, they were a Hollywood power couple. The hidden truth shattered this image in 2012 during a divorce proceeding that revealed dark, harrowing secrets involving Collins and accusations of child abuse. Grant found herself in the center of a media firestorm, having to protect her daughter and navigate the public collapse of her family life. It was a period of immense pain requiring a resilience far greater than anything scripted for Julie Parrish. Following the dissolution of her marriage and the trauma of those revelations, Grant retreated from the public eye to heal and rebuild. Her career had slowed in the late 90s, but she had continued to work in shows like State of Grace. In recent years, she has chosen a quieter existence, stepping back from the industry that thrives on exposure. She focused on her private life, her daughter, and finding peace after the storm. Her journey became one of quiet survival, a dignified silence in a noisy world. At 69 years old, Faye Grant remains a symbol of quiet strength. She is alive, though largely retired from the screen. Her legacy is dual: the fictional hero who saved the world from aliens and the real woman who navigated a personal nightmare with dignity and grace. Jeff Yagher as Kyle Bates. Jeff Yagher burst onto the scene with the energy of youth and the handsome looks of a matinee idol. Born in early 1961 in Kansas, he was a product of the heartland with big dreams, training at the prestigious Yale School of Drama. He was the baby of the main cast, only 23 years old when he took on the role of Kyle Bates. He came into the show as the new blood, the handsome rogue intended to capture the teen audience, but he brought a brooding intensity that hinted at his serious dramatic training. Kyle Bates was the hothead, the character who acted on emotion rather than logic. Yagher played him with a raw, unpolished charm that contrasted perfectly with the disciplined leaders of the resistance. His romance with the star child Elizabeth became a central emotional pillar of the series, providing a Romeo and Juliet narrative amidst the laser blasts. Yagher brought a physicality and a vulnerability to Kyle, making him the character who wore his heart on his sleeve, willing to risk everything for the woman he loved. Yagher's career was marked by a fascinating what if. He was famously cast as the original lead in 21 Jump Street, filming the pilot as Tommy Hansen before being replaced by a young Johnny Depp. It was a moment that could have defined a career, a brush with superstardom that slipped away. Yet Yagher didn't let this define him. He found love with actress Megan Gallagher and built a stable family life. His hidden truth was that his artistic soul wasn't limited to acting. He was also a gifted sculptor, a talent that ran in the family alongside his special effects brother, Kevin. As the acting roles shifted to guest spots on shows like Bones and Without a Trace, Yagher cultivated a second incredibly successful career. He became a renowned sculptor, creating high-end figurines and statues for collectors. He turned his hands from holding prop guns to molding clay, capturing the likenesses of monsters and heroes with stunning precision. He found a way to remain in the world of fantasy and sci-fi, not as a face on the screen, but as a creator of its physical legacy. Now 65 years old, Jeff Yagher is an artist in full. He is alive and thriving, balancing his acting roots with his sculptural mastery. His legacy is one of artistic evolution, proving that there are many ways to tell a story, whether through a performance or through the clay in one's hands. Frank Ashmore as Martin and Philip. Frank Ashmore was a working actor who understood the value of versatility. Born in 1945 in El Paso, Texas, he had a rugged, trustworthy quality that directors loved. He was 39 years old when he was cast in the original miniseries, not knowing he would become a pivotal part of the franchise's mythology. He arrived with a resume that included the comedic chaos of airplane prepared to play a small role in a big alien invasion. Ashmore achieved a rare feat in television. He played two distinct characters who were equally beloved. First, he was Martin, the fifth columnist who gave his life for the resistance, a character whose death broke the audience's heart. He was so impactful that the producers brought him back as Martin's twin brother, Philip. Ashmore navigated this with subtle brilliance, giving Philip a harder edge while retaining the soulful eyes that made Martin so trusted. He humanized the visitors, showing us that under the reptile skin, there could be honor and courage. The life of a character actor is one of constant hustle, a reality Ashmore knew well. His hidden truth was the balancing act of a career that ranged from high drama to voice work in video games. His personal life saw its own chapters of change, with a marriage ending in 2009 before he found lasting happiness with his wife, Kathy. He experienced the simple, profound joys of life away from the camera, becoming a grandfather for the first time in 2024, a milestone that offered a different kind of immortality than film. Ashmore never stopped working seamlessly, transitioning into the modern era of voice acting. He lent his gravelly, authoritative voice to major video game franchises like Mafia and Dead Space, introducing himself to a generation that had never seen V. He remained a presence in independent films and web series, an actor who simply loved the work. He aged into the role of the wise elder, carrying the history of his career with pride. At 80 years old, Frank Ashmore is a revered veteran of the industry. He is alive and active, a man who died on screen only to return again and again. His legacy is one of resilience and duality, the actor who taught us to look past the uniform and see the man beneath. Judson Scott as Lieutenant James. Judson Scott was a performer of intense discipline and classical pedigree. Born in the summer of 1952 in California, he didn't just stumble into acting. He studied it with rigor, earning a diploma from Juilliard and training at the Actors Studio. He was 32 years old when he donned the uniform of Lieutenant James. He had already brushed with sci-fi greatness, having played the uncredited but pivotal role of Joachim in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, a fact that gave him instant credibility with genre fans. As Lieutenant James, Scott was the opportunistic shark swimming in Diana's wake. He played the role with a sleek, dangerous vanity. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a climber, a man who saw chaos as a ladder. Scott used his physical presence honed by martial arts to make James feel like a coiled spring ready to strike. He brought a sexy, sinister energy to the show, representing the younger generation of visitors who were hungry for power and impatient with the old ways. Scott's career was often defined by the roles he almost got, or the credit he didn't receive. Most famously, the contract dispute that left his name off Star Trek II. His hidden truth was the struggle for recognition in an industry that often overlooks the supporting players who make the stars shine. He channeled his discipline into martial arts and motivational speaking, finding ways to command a room without a script. He built a private life with his wife Anna and their son, finding his center away from the unpredictability of Hollywood casting calls. Judson Scott continued to be a familiar face to sci-fi fans, popping up in The X-Files and Star Trek Voyager. He drifted away from the mainstream spotlight, focusing on his personal development and teaching. He became a figure of intrigue at conventions, the man with the Juilliard training who played space villains with Shakespearean intensity. He maintained his physique and his intensity, a quiet warrior in his own life. Now 74 years old, Judson Scott remains a cult figure of the genre. He is alive, a testament to the impact of a strong supporting performance. His legacy is that of the consummate professional, the actor who brought high art to pop culture and made being bad look very, very good. Michael Wright as Elias Taylor. Michael Wright brought a raw, electric authenticity to the cast of V. Born in the spring of 1956 in New York City, he was a creature of the urban landscape possessing a natural swagger and intensity. He was 28 years old when he took on the role of Elias Taylor. Wright wasn't interested in playing a polished hero. He brought the grit of the streets to the screen. He had already turned heads in the film streamers, proving he was a dramatic heavyweight capable of deep, explosive emotion. Elias Taylor was the scrounger, the man who could get you anything you needed when the world was ending. Wright played him with a kinetic energy, a man who used humor and hustle to mask his fear and his bravery. He represented the common man, the person who wasn't a soldier or a scientist, but who stepped up because he had to. His tragic death in the series was a pivotal moment, stripping the resistance of its most vibrant spirit. Wright made Elias unforgettable, a character who felt like he had a life that extended far beyond the edges of the TV screen. Wright's journey through Hollywood was a battle for roles that offered dignity and depth. His hidden truth lay in the struggle against being typecast, fighting for opportunities to show his range as a writer and director, not just an actor. He starred in the cult classic The Five Heartbeats, delivering a performance of heartbreaking vulnerability that mirrored his own artistic depth. His personal life saw a marriage to Mitzi Lauro and the inevitable ups and downs of a working actor's life, but he remained committed to his artistic voice. Wright continued to evolve, moving behind the camera to write and direct. He refused to be defined by a single role, pushing forward with projects like The Curse and Amsterdam Heavy. He remained an artist's artist, respected by his peers for his intensity and his refusal to phone it in. He kept working in the independent scene, telling stories that mattered to him, maintaining the hustle that defined Elias. At 70 years old, Michael Wright is a survivor and a creator. He is alive and active, a man who brought soul to science fiction. His legacy is one of undeniable charisma and talent, the spark that lit up the resistance and continues to burn in his creative endeavors. Howard K. Smith as himself. Howard K. Smith was not an actor. He was a piece of living history. Born in 1914 in Louisiana, he was one of the legendary Murrow Boys, a war correspondent who had stared down the barrel of real fascism in Nazi Germany. He was 70 years old when he appeared in V, a casting choice that was a stroke of genius. He didn't need to act. He simply needed to be Howard K. Smith, the man who had anchored the news for decades. By playing himself, Smith gave V a terrifying legitimacy. When he reported on the visitor invasion, it triggered a primal response in viewers who had grown up trusting his voice. He bridged the gap between the audience's reality and the show's fiction. He was the anchor in the storm, the voice of the free press struggling to speak truth to power under an occupation. It was a role that mirrored his own life, echoing his battles against censorship and propaganda during World War II. The hidden truth of Smith's life was far more dramatic than any script. He had been arrested by the Gestapo in 1941 for refusing to broadcast Nazi propaganda, a real-life resistance that made his role in V deeply poignant. He moderated the Kennedy-Nixon debate. He lost his son Jack to cancer, a personal tragedy that shadowed his later years. He was a man who had seen the best and worst of humanity, and he brought that weight to his brief but vital time on the show. Smith continued to be a commentator and a voice of reason until the end of his days. He didn't fade away. He remained an observer of the American century. He passed away on February 15, 2002. He never saw the modern reboot of the show, but he didn't need to. He had lived the reality of resistance long before the saucers landed. Howard K. Smith died at the age of 87. He is the only cast member who brought the gravitas of real history to the fantasy. His legacy is monumental not as an actor but as a journalist who reminded us that the first casualty of any invasion, earthly or alien, is the truth. Aki Aleong as Mr. Chiang. Aki Aleong was a man of many lives before he ever put on the visitor uniform. Born in 1934 in Trinidad and Tobago, he was a trailblazer who had already lived a full career as a music executive and a chart-topping singer in the 1960s. He was 50 years old when he was cast as Mr. Chiang, bringing a maturity and a steely resolve to the role. He was a veteran who had fought for representation in an industry that was often unkind to Asian actors. Mr. Chiang was the nightmare in the suit. Aleong played him with a cold, robotic efficiency that made him deeply unsettling. He was the henchman who got things done, the contrast to the emotional volatility of the other villains. He didn't need to shout. His presence was a threat in itself. Aleong infused the character with a focused intensity, creating a villain who felt competent and lethal. He was the bureaucracy of evil personified. Off-screen, Aleong was a passionate advocate. His hidden truth was his tireless fight for equality. He served as a leader in the Media Action Network for Asian Americans, battling against the very stereotypes that Hollywood often tried to impose. In his later years, he faced a personal battle with dementia, a cruel thief that attacks the memories of a life well lived. He fought this final battle with the dignity that defined his career. Aki Aleong worked until the very end, a testament to his love for the craft. He remained a fierce advocate and a beloved character actor. He passed away recently on June 22, 2025, leaving behind a body of work that spanned music, film, and activism. He was a pioneer who opened doors for those who came after him. Aki Aleong died at the age of 90. His legacy is one of breaking barriers. He was more than just a villain on a sci-fi show. He was a trailblazer who fought for his place at the table, ensuring that the future would be more inclusive than the past. The motherships have departed and the laser blasts are silent. Standing here in early 2026, the red V spray-painted on the walls stands not just for victory, but for the void they left behind. We mourn the unspeakable tragedy of the young stars whose lights were extinguished too soon. Dominique Dunn and the veterans who fought their final battles in private. They taught us that resistance is necessary and that true humanity isn't about what's on your skin, but what's in your heart. This is the Resistance, signing off.